The topic is Fireside Chat Mitigating Cybersecurity Risks in Digital Transformation Strategy. For this panel, the moderator is Mr. Anuj Tewari, CISO, TMF Group. Mr. Anuj Tewari is one of the foremost experts on cybersecurity, risk and privacy. Mr. Anuj has worked with several Fortune 500 firms around the world to help shape their information technology risk strategy to build business-driven risk and compliance programs. Mr. Anuj has worked for years as a CISO and cybersecurity leader, building teams and focusing on simplifying enterprise security challenges. Over the years, Mr. Anuj has experienced the highs of growing a team, building risk-based strategy, with led to massive security investments over which he had direct oversight.
May I invite Mr. Kuldeep Singh, alternate CISO at NTPC Limited, and Mr. Abhishek Bansal, CISO for Max Life Insurance, Seema Ahluwalia, who's the Director HR and Digital Transformation at Sonepar, and Vartul, Mittal, Technology and Innovation Specialist. Thank you here. It's quite a diverse group, if I may. We have representation from insurance, power, technology, supply chain. So it's pretty interesting. I'm hoping we'll get very diverse view in today's conversation. So you heard the topic was about talking about cybersecurity risks and digital transformation. And I guess the digital transformation story really got accelerated at times of COVID. I guess we are all tired of hearing that story, right? That COVID kick-started a lot of those things. But I guess if we really look back, I like to give this connotation that regulators have been in a state of ignorance, if you will, or in a state of forgiveness. But I guess it's time we kind of look back and reflect upon what were the learnings along some of the journeys that we had in digital transformation in the past 2 or 3 years. And then what have the experiences been uniquely across the panel. So with that, we have a lot of experts here, so I'm not going to take up a lot of time. I'm going to quickly start picking up on their brains. And I guess I want to really start by understanding what kind of cybersecurity risks should organizations be aware of when looking at digital transformation strategy? And if I may invite Abhishek to get us started with this.
Oh, thank you, Anuj, for the question. I think digital transformation is a broad topic we have been hearing all day long. Commander Verma actually gave a deep insight around all the technologies put forth. To me, I think it's not about one particular risk or a challenge. The way I see it is digital transformation, which encompasses a bouquet of, let's say, technologies put together. It actually increases your attack surface, right? Machines having their own IDs, right? So your existing identity and access management solutions, you need to look into it differently. People accessing your enterprise almost from anywhere, right? So there are connotations when you talk about the breadth of the attack surface, right? The increased number of bots, data panning out almost everywhere, right? Businesses going and picking up a lot of SaaS offerings. So practically, however hard you talk about the inventorization of your IT and then the risks and the cyber assets, or the solutions behind, you really need to look into if there is a shadow IT playing all along. While this concept has been there, but again, the breadth has increased. And it's not only about the breadth, the kind of misuse cases with the technology. So it's not only us who are now leveraging technology, right? We heard about generative AI use cases for security, but mind you, I think the hackers are also using generative AI. I mean, likes of Darkbot are there, whereby generative AI is also being used, and again, hackers are also getting far more collaborative and open in terms of, let's say, for example, they sharing up the means and mechanisms. So this has led to actually, I think, thinking one about how you need to strategize and actually be upfront in your game when digital transformation is happening in your organization, right? So rather than actually looking at it post facto, can you really look into it upfront and try and see things based on their fundamentals, when these things are being implemented? So
fabulous. So thank you. I picked up some very interesting things: data anywhere, access anywhere, pilferage of technology, shadow IT, surely being one of them coming up. With that, may I also pick your brains, Kuldeep, if you don't mind, on the same topic?
Yeah, so, just taking forward what Abhishek said, there are several things like, first of all, whenever any digital transformation strategy is in place, generally there are conflicts or there are differences between the teams, functional teams that are actually implementing this, right? The security and maybe the management team as well, right? So we need to see that this is a very, very major risk. Why? Because if at the very start, as Abhishek was already mentioning, right? At the very start, you should see that what are the cybersecurity concerns in this strategy, overall strategy or implementation of solutions that you are going to place there. Then the architecture is a primary concern. Why? Because there are several new technologies. You would be going to cloud, you would be introducing IoTs, you would be introducing RFIDs, maybe 5G also somewhere will come. Private networks you will create. So what are the interfaces from where you are, connecting to business lands, you are connecting to OT, you are connecting to SCADA, and are there proper isolations in between or not? So that is another concern. In summary, what you can say that attack surface is going to increase a lot. Secondly, it is going to be very, very complex, right? So beforehand, you need to strategize about the security architecture that you are going to place. Certainly, whenever you are introducing the new technologies, people are also getting new ways to introduce data, collaborate, and that also introduces security concerns. Simple collaboration tools, if you are having already in place, people are they can very easily share the data. Then after that, this shadow IT, let's suppose if it is there, the IT starts losing, security starts losing control over how it is moving, how it is not moving. That is another concern. Then there is a very important concern, that is a regulatory concern, right? There are several new legislations that have now come into India as well. So DPB, you must have heard, it is already approved by the cabinet and now would be probably there in the monsoon session. If that comes, that will open another avenue because the data, personal data would be protected and there are several liabilities that would be on the enterprise if something happens with that data. There is also a NDFR, this National Data Regulatory Framework. So that is also for the non-personal data. That is also in the making as of now. But sometime this will come. Then there is Digital India Act that is also in the making. Certain guidelines which has come. And for the energy sectors, some sector-specific guidelines are also there. So RBI is having something. CEA is also having something for energy sector. So there are several such guidelines that are coming into place. We also have to look into that. And obviously, if there are budget is less or probably there is friction at some end, awareness is not much in the employees, then it becomes a problem. So it is also a problem of culture change whenever we are doing that. I think I'll stop there and you.
Fabulous. No, thanks, Kuldeep. I think bringing up the context of all the regulations that are coming through, which may or may not have been as pertinent in the past, is interesting. And then the common theme I've observed so far in Abhishek's and Kuldeep's comment for sure is observability, visibility, and lack of control, which we are very quickly losing with all the digital transformation, cloud, OT. Yeah, at this point, I think I'll probably want to bring Vartul, your views in. Essentially, when we are looking at, so we heard about the risks that are coming through when we are thinking of digital transformation and we are adopting newer technologies and aspects. What are the things that organizations should think of at stages of digital transformation, if you will, when you're thinking from a cybersecurity lens in the digital transformation journey?
Okay, thanks, Anuj. So while we talk about cybersecurity and digital transformation in combination, most of the times why we do transformation and especially when you talk about digital transformation, it is all about we want to automate the processes, right? And most of the times we look at the processes which are back office, front office, and we try to quickly get an ROI by automating them and freeing up the FTs or probably making them more straight through process and removing the inefficiencies. So that is the first, I'll say the goal when we say digital first or cloud first strategy. Now, the funny part is when we do this, we don't introduce cybersecurity on day one. We talk about only on the outcomes, what SaaS application we are deploying. We started today with Steve's presentation that Wonderbots, they work with Blue Prism, UiPath, Automation Anywhere. which is one of the best examples of digital transformation automation. Now, when we deploy them, we look at the ROI on the SaaS licenses that we can generate. But finally, we realize that because we have introduced digital workers, which are working in tandem with the human workforce, and there are multiple new devices that they are accessing to in a very hybrid model because they are virtually non-existent. And finally, we see that the amount of IPs we are creating for every device, every worker, we have not considered them in our cybersecurity policy that we already have in this organization. And now we have to redo our policy to ensure that we can mitigate or remediate those threats that come through insider attacks or ransomware, which were earlier not even existing. So definitely, Anuj, to answer your question, the idea now, what we have learned as a change management is that cyber security has to be introduced on day one, along with the digital co-workers, because the amount of data we are taking from on-prem to cloud, we are exposing ourselves to more risk and threats. So that has to be considered very much before we even embark upon a digital transformation strategy.
Fabulous, thanks, Vartul. I think the underlying theme continues to be adoption, right? And you very interestingly picked up on a couple of aspects in terms of retrofitting the policies, right? And I think that is something that a lot of people are still playing up on. For instance, think of your ISMSs long back and think of how they've moved, how access has changed, how access management, authentication, user interaction has changed, how the user experience also has transformed. In all of this, you also mentioned that, let's say, when the SaaS app is already brought in, then we are thinking of how cyber and some of these aspects can be bolt on. It's a very interesting thought. At that thought, may I pivot to Seema, if I may bring you in, and would want to understand from you, how can organizations effectively train their folks on cybersecurity awareness? And what do you think is the most efficient way of doing that? Any thoughts there?
Thank you so much. I think we just spoke about, Kuldeep mentioned and Vartul, that at one side we are educating our IT geeks basically to put the surveillance in place for cybersecurity and firewall and all those stuffs. And then on the other side, we are having a set of engineers who are basically getting taught for hacking. So what are we doing? We are creating two layers, but one is like maybe doing to protect the system, and the other one to take out the information from the system. So we have to definitely put policies, processes, as well as like educate. I think the cultural transformation is more important than digital transformation. The mindset. So you keep on bringing a lot of softwares in the company, but if you don't educate your people that like what this software is going to bring, or maybe how they are going to help in their day-to-day activities or the job function, it is so difficult that like maybe you bring, you keep on having layers of a lot of softwares, but if there is no education, there is no learning. So what we do it in Sonepar, that we have e-learning modules. Definitely COVID was a time when we thought that this is the best time for educating our staff and resources, because that was the time available with us. And then we had tied up with LinkedIn Learning. Then we introduced a lot of classroom sessions, and we started with very basic things that like, see, as a lady of the house, we, when there was no IT, from a needle to an elephant, I think the Home Minister knew everything. The ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, was done by all our ladies at our home. So they knew that like maybe when there is no light, they used to know that like how to pick up from where a small needle to an elephant can be traced. So what we have to do is, we have to educate our people in the organization that what is important and what is not important, what to do in what situation. So I think e-learning, LinkedIn Learning, classroom sessions, as well as like posters, branding, and talking about all these threats which are important, why there is a ransomware, why there is what all firewall we have to protect, and maybe clicking a picture. See, he's clicking our pictures. You don't have my permission to take my pictures. So that is GDPR. See, we're talking about big things, but we just forget that like we don't even talk basic things to our children in our house. And as a human resource director, I'm telling you, my portfolio complements me with an IT as well as human resource. So I can definitely tell that what are the threats. We are all talking about the threats. So he's taking my picture, he needs my permission to place my picture on the net. So all these things are education and very, very important, guys. Make processes very simple, make policies very simple, talk as a layman language to all your employees. They don't know, they don't understand big words like data lake, data centers. Educate them that like why it is important. Why even are we like saying that like data sanitization, data filtration, master data management, why these things are important? It's just garbage in, garbage out. Whatever you're going to key in, it's just going to give you back the same reports. So all your business decisions are based on the data sanitization. So I think process, policies, and education is very important. Thank you.
Fabulous, thank you. I guess that's very pertinent with the examples you gave in terms of having a lot of shop floors or managing a lot of plants sort of thing, right? And this would then definitely pivot and would be very different, let's say, in a kind of world, Abhishek, that you operate in. So it would be a lot more digital, it would be more hybrid and a lot more knowledge workers than how it operates in Seema's world, right? So I would love to hear your views as well of how, what is the best and efficient way to keep our employees, partners, ecosystems abreast in terms of cybersecurity awareness.
So I concur with Seema, I think on one important point, keep cybersecurity simple, right? Unless and until you keep it simple and you keep on reinforcing it, it doesn't get registered, right? You do n amount of phishing campaigns, it only matters, right, whether you are giving an Amazon coupon or what is actually the hook whereby they get played, right? Second is make education practical, right? Whatever you do as part of an exercise actually stays with the person who is receiving it, right? I mean, there are ways whereby people will skip the WBTs or the web-based trainings and they'll directly go to the quiz, and apparently they'll seek responses from the person sitting on the right hand side to get it done because they know this is really a mandatory exercise. So rather than that, can you really make experience rooms, right, whereby they can actually see on one computer if they click on a phishing email what can go wrong, right? And third, and I mean this actually goes beyond a basic education part. This is all about how as enterprise leaders we are analyzing the behavior of the employees, and this is nothing to do with user entity behavior analytics, right? So practically all organizations pick up, let's say for example, the employee surveys. So they go ahead and actually have a whistleblowing mechanism. So when you are actually looking into all of these put together, how are you actually seeing the behaviors and the patterns for the right education? Say for example, do you really see a disgruntled lot in one corner, and are you doing something to address, because inside the threat is also a big threat. It's not necessarily somebody is going to attack you from outside only, right? So I think these things put together is something which is industry agnostic, right? The only thing is from a shop floor to, let's say, more of a white collar job, people are dealing more with digital assets as compared to, let's say, a shop floor. But I think these things are pertinent as we are going with more and more assets, both in our personal as well as in enterprise lives.
Fabulous. I really love the connotation of having a continuous feedback loop. We talked about a whistleblower policy, right? So we have a lot of these phishing campaigns which we run. Technology comes in, somebody phishes, somebody reports on a button saying this was phishing. But is it really bringing out the grassroots problem, right? I think that's a great point to reflect upon.
Can I just add something for the whistleblower policy? See, we had instances, being in HR, I'm telling you, this is a very interesting topic for all of you guys sitting over here. What happens that we educate our employees that there is a whistleblower policy, internal controls, compliances are there. Now you just this is a website, please go and log in a complaint. Without even understanding the consequences that how this small thing, one statement of there, one logging or complaint, how this will blow out a person's career or maybe the department or the management. I'm telling you guys, maybe now we have started educating people that keep your laptop information in your personal information in your personal laptops and your personal mobile phones. Don't even just because when there is an audit or this kind of a whistleblower policy happens, each and every activity which is on your system, each and every activity, because mobile is your business. You just have your laptop and your mobile phone and I think you're sorted. You can just work from anywhere in the world. But what are the consequences of your pictures with your partners, vendors, suppliers, or maybe sitting next to, if I'm talking to Abhishek sitting over here, Ayush. So what is happening? My pictures are going across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Employees don't even understand that tomorrow if there is an audit and there is a whistleblower, the complaint committee sit there, and how they're going to misuse or use your pictures, your data, maybe a resume of your children on your system, and you have just sent it across to a vendor or a partner. Please help me. So that also will be a conflict of interest. So we are not understanding. We need to educate our employees that what is important. So data to be used in a right format. I think that is very important. Abhishek, I think,
Fabulous.
do you agree with that? Yeah.
On a lighter side, I just wanted to say, please take our permission before posting pics.
Good one. We should start charging royalty for these things, isn't it? Yeah. So, Kuldeep, again, in your environment, now this is very different. We heard about supply chains organization. We heard about where a lot of digital workers are there. You have a very different way of operating. Must be a lot of plants, must be a lot of unique locations. Maybe a lot of people who are not as cyber savvy, but still, because of all the digital transformation, are interacting with technology a lot more than they have in the past. How are you dealing with these challenges?
Yeah, so the fundamentals remain the same, right? I mean, like Abhishek and Seema ji has told. So the thing is that we introduce one another aspect, I would say. First of all, as you said, and very correctly said, that the tech savviness is a little less when we are talking about the enterprises such as us, because there are a lot of non-executives also, and executives also are there, but they are very, very focused on to the activities that relate to generation and all. So there, an acceptance of responsibility from the user side also needs to come in. See, we can train them as much as we want, but the point is that they need to understand that if something happens, some kind of problem happens because of some kind of negligence or inadvertent actions, some security breach happens, there is a responsibility that would be attached to that user as well, because cyber security is a joint responsibility. It is not the responsibility of only IT security team, right? Starting from the top management to the the last line of the employees, right? So that, first of all, so there are 2 points. First of all, that should come in a proper policy manner from the top management also, that okay, I mean, we are owning this and everybody should own it. And it is not the responsibility of a particular group that you can go, okay, this policy was not configured probably, and that's why it happened. No. You need to see, you need to be cautious. If you are clicking on any particular mails, you need to be very, very sure that, okay, yeah, is it from the external domain or not? Is it having some kind of attachment? All those things. Secondly, physical interaction is also very important. Like phishing campaigns, maybe there may be drills also on site, right? That may also talk about security. So now in our case, safety is very important concern, because human and equipment safety is much more dangerous, and cybersecurity cybersecurity breaches can also lead to that. Okay, so that is another aspect. So whenever those drills are happening, we also introduce this. So because that is now part and parcel of these things. So that are 2 additional things I can say that are there.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
I really liked his connotation about the physical drills. I'm thinking with all the digital awareness we are doing, what if our employees forget to spot the smoke in the room and run and look at business continuity with everything else? So that's very interesting, right? Very interesting. May I bring you in, Vartul, now I've been picking up a lot on data, a lot of private information, sensitive information, whether it's somebody's personal information or organization's personal information. So when you think of digital transformation and you think of sensitive data, whether it's company's data or customers' data, what are the technologies or what are the best practices one should think of to protect it adequately? How do you even identify it? How do you even segregate it? How do you then protect it?
See, when we are doing any project which is focused upon, again, digital transformation, we need to ensure that the data which is at rest or which is at motion, it is first of all encrypted. And because we are talking about PI data, which is customer data, especially if it is a banking process, or let's say if it is a healthcare project, where we may adhere to all the compliances, but still we have to ensure that data that we are carrying on the processes, because even if a bot is working and bot is playing with the data from the source to the target file, and then finally we have all the documents which where we deploy the OCR, ICR, and the IDP processes, where we are scanning a digital document, which can be either an image or a text document. Definitely, there is a lot of contractual data which may be involved in the entire process automation. So we have to ensure that data that we are consuming in a process, it has to be completely encrypted. It follows the compliance guidelines, the SOX guidelines, HIPAA guidelines, and so definitely we don't fall into a trap that there has been a violation when we automate a process, because a bot can be a maker, but there will be a human checker as well sitting alongside the bot, finally submitting the process at the end. So this is my take on it.
Fabulous, fabulous. On those lines, again, Abhishek, if I may bring you in to talk about the common vulnerabilities and exploits, a little more, switching more towards a little bit technology. But we talked about data, we talked about identification of sensitive data, but then what do you really think of are the key challenges which people in your peer industry or in your peer groups are seeing? And if we can talk to the larger audience about it.
So I think it's both challenges as well as when you circumvent those comes in as solutions as well, right? So first and foremost, I think we all kind of started with that digital transformation. Now this is a big word, and all talk about doing things first time right. So apparently, the areas which are talked about is whether you are pretty aligned with the business when they're bringing in those transformations. In technology sense, people talk about DevSecOps, shift left security, and all of that. Right? To me, it is not really a good to have. That you have shift left now. It is a must have, because if your business is far more agile than your security, right? Then you are in a catch up game. Then you will be doing security post facto. You will not be doing security upfront. So having your architectural libraries and doing all of that upfront, knowing about it, that a transformation is happening is a challenge, and doing it right is a solution. That how do you kind of placeholder, put your placeholder for those things in place, right? Second is, again, as we said, both the breadth and depth is increasing, right? Decisions are being made by bots, actions are being taken by machines. There are multiple IDs. Your reliance on third-party vendors is growing, right? You may do contractual arrangements, but fundamentally, unless and until you know something has happened wrong at the vendor side, you will never be able to crystallize the penalty clause.
True.
So how do you get to know once it is outside your shores? So the same thing actually is applicable when you have about like 40, 50 technologies talking separately, throwing you logs separately, talking about fine, something is happening wrong in place 1 versus place 2. So that visibility which we have been talking about is not only about the logs. Appropriate logs and is definitely step 1. But having them integrated and giving that visibility which is actionable in the sense, again, it's a challenge because it's easier said than done. As we kind of traverse this journey, more and more technologies will come by, and we are equally culprit because we go at, okay, fine, this is a problem, let me buy a solution for it. So this is again a challenge, but if we really do it right, we really need to make sense. As for example, I've seen organizations in my erstwhile roles as well, where even identities are not integrated with your system logs. Forget about actually talking something which is cutting edge and new, right? So this is again a challenge as well as a solution put forth, right? I think these two, in my view, are the biggest areas which one needs to kind of look into when you're looking into a digital transformation and how you can circumvent those challenges.
Fabulous. Thank you, Abhishek. Really loved the conversation about the digital ecosystem, right? So with the whole digital transformation, there comes a large shift in terms of the partners, suppliers who are actually supporting us now. And do we have the right to audit clauses? Do we even know and have we looked at the right shared responsibility models? Have we redefined the RACI matrices? I think there's some of the fundamentals that some of us have learned and seen. With that, I think a great conversation, thanks to each one of you. We have about 1.5 minutes left, so I want to take a pause, and I want you all to take benefit of the great experts we have in-house today. So if you have any questions for the panel, welcome that. Please, we have 2 hands here. Can we get some microphones on the floor?
Thanks for such an engaging discussion. My question here is to Abhishek. I come from Kappa. We are a consulting company focused on aviation there. With the advent of real-time engagements happening, with more and more focus towards personalized engagements, customer experience, next best action, next best, kind of recommendations. Uh, Security environment is all the more complex, right, in this case. Now, I understand that we need to have all the right measures in place beyond obviously the organizational aspects that we spoke about. How do you perceive this area really developing? And also, how can we look at the second question will be more in terms of the security by design? You spoke about it, but maybe a little bit more elaboration in terms of now it's not just purely DevSecOps, right? It's also about organizational stuff, right? From policies to the point of evolution there altogether. Yeah.
Okay, so two questions. I think the first one is all about when in this era of hyper-personalization, how typically this challenge can be circumvented. So I don't have a silver bullet, if I may say that way. But I think what can be done is you just need to check how the profiling is being carried out internally. So the merging of two different sets of data or something which is internal and external, that is something where the governance has to be put forth beyond the controls, right? The controls still stay in. I mean, what you transpire as an encryption, masking, tokenization, and know who has the right access, that still stays. But how are you reaching out is something which makes sense, because in this era where whilst we are looking forward for the new data protection bill, I think this is already a tenant as far as the regulated industry goes, whether it is RBI, IRDAI, SEBI, and they are all talking about how do you need to take care of the customer's privacy and the data security around it. But again, I mean, this is a business need where they want to kind of give target customized offerings to the customers. I think what makes sense is customer is not really angry if you are going ahead with a targeted offering. The customer is angry when you are actually doing something without their consent, or you are making sense of an information which the customer has not provided and you are picking up from ABC sources. I think that's my limited take on your question one. On your question two, well said. I think this is not only a tech problem. This is nothing to do only having implemented, let's say for example, a DevSecOps. How ingrained you are as a function as part of your business transformation journeys also. I mean, are they engaging risk and security departments upfront when they are planning something big? Because there and then itself you can talk about the right approaches and method. I think the point here is not about security saying no or technology risk saying no. The point here is about how. So for example, you understand their business transformation goals and you tell them how this can be done in a way which is conducive to actually your compliances as well as your risk hat as as they see it from a business hat.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
We had a question here in front of the room.
Hello. Yeah. My name is Kunal. I come from a company called Hyperscience. We are primarily a product company and we sell our product licenses to different companies. The question is very generic. Any one of you can answer that. It's regarding generative AI and ChatGPT. So very recently in the news, we saw that a lot of organizations have banned use of ChatGPT, which is a no-brainer and a productivity tool within the organization. So just a question to any of the panelists basically who can answer. What's happening behind the scenes? Are there conversations regarding generative AI, the use of generative AI, and how are we going to use it? Or are we still just waiting for Microsoft to come up with a licensed version and that's what we're going to do?
So generative AI, I mean, with the advent of ChatGPT now, everybody is talking about generative AI. There are multiple perspectives, I will say. There are so many cyber risks as well, because this is a CISO community, we and Abhishek here are. So we are looking it from that perspective as well. So first of all, let's accept it. It is a great innovation that has been done, right? But there are several things that can go wrong when you are implementing this. So there are chances of bias, because the data that it is being trained on this particular model, it may be LLP or some other model, but that bias can come in. And if that bias comes in the data, it will also reflect into the end product, right? Then there are risks of IP and copyright violations that may be there. We have already seen instances where the source code, it is being leaked onto these websites because some kind of grounding mechanism is also being talked about, so that whenever you are integrating any kind of this mechanism, generative AI modeling mechanism, you can actually protect the data that is actually going out by way of prompts, somebody is trying to ask proper questions, then they are also giving the context slowly, right? That data can be used to build up something on the other side, and it can be used to attack yourself once again, right? So then there are several other ethical concerns as well, right? How it is being used, and then there are problems if the data is not good, how overtrained or undertrained the model is. That also can affect. So there is still a long way to go when we are talking about the generative AI. Better way, I think better approach would be to take it in on a case-by-case basis. You were talking about Microsoft. Microsoft has already come up with the concept of co-pilots. They are having co-pilots in cybersecurity. They are having co-pilots in M365, Office 365 services also. They are going to write mails for you. They are going to create presentations for you. But the point is to take it slow, and as we were talking about earlier, everyone needs to think about cybersecurity also as of now, right? Because that is a concern we also need to keep up in mind.
All right. I've been told that our time is really up and I heard the bell. I know there was another question at the back. Maybe we can take it outside because the time's up. Really appreciate everybody being here. I'm sure the audience really enjoyed listening to all of you. Thank you for sharing your views.
All right. So I request all our panelists along with our moderator, please be with us. And I would like to invite on stage Mr. Vinay Kumar, CIO and Technology Leader, McDonald's, India, North and East, to facilitate our moderator along with all our panelists. With a huge round of applause, everybody. First of all, I request Mr. Vinay Kumar, sir, please facilitate our moderator of the session, Mr. Anuj Tewari, CISO, TMF Group. With a little applause, everyone. Then I request Mr. Vinay Kumar, sir, please facilitate Mr. Kuldeep Singh, one of our panelists. Then we have our other panelist, Mr. Abhishek Bansal, CISO and CRO, Max Life Insurance. Then we have with us another panelist, Mrs. Seema Ahluwalia, Director Human Resource, Digital Transformation, Sonepar. Last but not least, we have with us Mr. Vartul Mittal, Technology and Innovation Specialist. Thank you all our panelists along with our moderator for this fruitful, full of information and skills session.